Welcome, ladies and gents, and welcome to another movie review. And this is another review of a Polish movie called Nich, Cała, Nadzieja, which in English translates to The Last Spark of Hope. I mean, it doesn't exactly literally translate to that, to translate in them of hope, but yeah, the English translation was The Last Spark of Hope, and this is a Polish science fiction movie, and it's honestly one of the saddest and most depressing movies I've ever seen in my life. It's a very competently made movie, don't get me wrong, and I will have to give it respect because it's very competently made, but it's also literally one of the saddest and most depressing movies I've ever seen, and ultimately it wasn't for me. I'll probably never watch this movie again. I'm glad I saw it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm very glad I saw it, but that will be probably the only time I will ever see it. And first, before we get to the actual story, first I will say the movie has some interesting philosophical themes, questions, and all, and talks about some really current, important, relevant topics, like climate change, as well as human over-reliance on technology and artificial intelligence. Those are some very important and relevant subjects in the modern day. So I'm really glad it was very much discussing them, and I really like the interesting way the movie approached those subjects. So credit to that. And another thing I will say, it's a very low budget movie. I mean, very low budget, and yet the overusage of wonderful practical effects and the visuals and all, you just are amazed by how such a low budget the director was able to pull off such amazing and wonderful great scale visuals. Although you do also see what were the smart ways he was able to get around all that, like the fact that there are literally only two characters in this movie, and those are the two leads, a girl named Eva and her robot. But before we get to the actual story, I will also say that as I was reading some Polish comments on this movie, someone said Polish Fallout. The only Fallout video game I played is Fallout New Vegas, and if I'm being honest, well, yes, visually it does strongly give me Fallout vibes, but story-wise it's decidedly not Fallout. It's, as I said, it's a very depressing, pretty philosophical, but very depressing and sad story. And now let's get to it. So the story is that a girl, Eva, is, as far as she knows, she's the only human left on Earth after the climate wars. And the only companion is her robot, Arthur, and she basically treats him as her only friend, and then you can see how she even at the beginning asks him riddles, and being a robot, he's actually able to tell most riddles until the last one, which is actually far more complicated and requires some critical thinking, which being a robot, he's not really able to do. And so the first 30 minutes of the movie basically are there to just establish the situation and Eva's relationship with her robot and what her regular life looks like. And then later, that's where we are getting to the main story, which, if I'm being honest, could probably easily be told in a 40 or even 30-minute movie. It's a very much type of a story that could perfectly well fit for a science fiction anthology series, and it could easily be told in 30 minutes only. And the movie isn't particularly even long. It's hour and 20 minutes, but still, that's the type of story it's telling. And the main action really starts when Eva leaves the camp for a few minutes, and then she comes back, and Arthur doesn't want to let her in because she doesn't know the password. Because then we learn that the routine is that the password changes every 3 months for her safety, and Eva just made a small mistake of forgetting to read what the next password will be, and now the robot doesn't want to let her in. Of course, he clearly states that he recognizes her and knows it's Eva, but says for her protection she needs to give him the password, which Eva doesn't know. She even suggests that maybe she could go inside and read the password, but Arthur is a robot, and sadly there is no reasoning with a robot. The robot doesn't see an anomaly or irrationality in its thing. It's just doing what it's programmed to do, and what it's programmed that no matter what, she always has to give a password. If she doesn't give a password, then she's an intruder. But as I said, he's a robot, so he doesn't see the irrationality in that. And here also, now we're also going to start talking about later when it starts getting really sad, because then of course Eva can't go in the camp, so as a result she starts being dehydrated and she begs Arthur to give her water, something he refuses to do because, again, that's not what he's programmed to do. So she abandons him for a minute and then she goes to the local factory where she looks for water and still can't find anything. And then goes back to the camp. And then, spoiler alert, so probably most of you won't be able to watch this movie, but if you have an opportunity to watch and want to watch it, leave now. This is where we're getting to spoiler ending. Still with me? Okay. Eva dies. She dies of dehydration, and this was so sad, so depressing, although by this point I kind of figured that's what was going to happen, because the overall tone of the movie was so bleak, so sad, that by the time Eva was dying, I figured that this is what was going to happen, but it was still really sad and really depressing. But also, it raised even more interesting questions, like, why did she even keep the robot around? Like, the robot theoretically was there for her protection, yet he was the very thing really that caused her death. Which raised an interesting question, that why would she even need a robot for protection when she's technically the last human left on Earth? And if anything, as I just said, the robot actually caused her death and didn't really protect her from anything. In fact, after this I thought that maybe the only reason she was keeping the robot around was because she felt so lonely and she felt like the robot was really her only friend, which turned out to actually not really be the case later, that it was still just a robot, but that also explores another theme, pretty depressing theme of being lonely and all alone, and what it would be like to be all alone in this world, which in some ways could basically sometimes be viewed that maybe her death was actually a mercy, because at least for me, being all alone in the world without any human, I don't know if I would ever want to live like that. So those are all really interesting philosophical and really depressing themes that the movie is exploring. Ultimately, I think W Nich, Cała, Nadzieja, The Last Spark of Hope, is a very competently made movie with interesting philosophical themes and really interesting important questions and very important nowadays subject of climate change, as well as human over-reliance on technology and artificial intelligence. But at the same time, it's very sad, very depressing, and I will likely not ever be watching this movie again, because I've seen movies with very similar important themes, while at the same time certainly much less depressing and far more uplifting. So here are my thoughts on The Last Spark of Hope, and press the like button, please subscribe this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!